Hello, folks. It gives me absolute delight to just stay before you just now to talk to you about the Junior Academy and the program for this week. Thank you very much for your responses for the last 2 weeks for Kusunga Part 1 and Kusunga Part 2. I've given you some feedback, especially from Kusunga Part 1, and that should give you an insight into what we expect when you do some writing. Now, just a very quick feedback for you. Your tenses, your punctuation, your sentence structure, your organization, the content you put out there is very important. For the writing task, there are 5 components that we look at. We look at the sentence structure. Use a variety of sentence structures depending on the question. You can use a simple statement. You could use a question. You could use a compound statement. You could use a complex sentence. It doesn't matter, but use a variety. It makes your work richer. Okay. The next thing is the punctuation and spelling. It's always good for you to read your work over again to ensure that there are no spelling errors and that your punctuations are correct. Make sure you use a couple of punctuation marks, not just the popular full stop and comma. Try to use colon, try to use question mark, try to use punctuation marks, try to use a variety, dash, hyphen, just to make your work richer. Okay, that's the second part in the writing task. The third part is the content. Make sure that what you're writing is relevant to the task you've been asked to do. Most of you have been doing pretty good in that area. Then the organization. Make sure that when you're writing your answer again is well organized, either into paragraphs, or you could use subheadings, or you could use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, depending on the points, bullet points. You could use letters to number your work. It doesn't matter, but let it have some coherence in terms of the way you organize your content. Okay, and that's about it. It's very important. Okay, now today's work is titled Brad's Last Hope. Now this work has some elements taken from a novel written by Victor Hugo titled Les Miserables, but spelled L-E-S with a space, M-I-S-E-R-A-B-L-E-S. Most times in English they would like to pronounce it Les Miserables, but it's a French word, Les Miserables. Now it's a very big novel. So the characters, I've borrowed some characters from this novel to incorporate, to include in this work, Brad's Last Hope. Okay, and this is Captain Javert and nothing is Inspector Javert and Mr. Valjean. Okay, now Mr. Valjean was somebody who actually went to prison for stealing a loaf of bread. This novel was written in the many years ago, in 18 something. So he was sent to prison for stealing a loaf of bread. Now, you might consider that that's very, very harsh to send someone to prison for a loaf of bread. And when this man came out from prison after, he got out of prison, then Inspector Javert would not let him rest. He tracked him down and wanted to ensure that he went back to prison. What was his crime? For just stealing a loaf of bread. So there was this constant animosity, constant tug, constant struggle, conflict between Inspector Javert and Mr. Valjean. Okay, now that's the background of the story. But in Brad's Last Hope, okay, Mr. Moss, who is Brad's, has got a relationship with Brad, is traveled to Brad's school to go and make some inquiries. Okay, and the journey, the interactions, the atmosphere that has been created, and the final conversation with Reverend Biney is very important. So I want you to look very, very closely at the text. Any word you don't understand, check it up in the dictionary, read it over and over again. You will understand. It's actually very simple. But for this particular one, we're looking at implied meaning. The meaning is not pretty obvious, like the questions I'm asking. You have to read in between the lines, and then you add one and one together to get the answer. And when you're expressing your answer, express it as much as you can. But take note of your punctuation, your spelling, and things like that. It's something that's supposed to make you read in between the text, implied meaning. Okay, it's very, very important. And for the last question that says, the questions you would like to ask Brad, make sure it's in the first person. Don't ask it. I'll give you an example. Brad, why did you, so you use the second person, you, why did you want your daddy to meet with Mr. Biney? Or why did what Mr. Biney say to you very important? Things like that. You is in the second person. And I hope that you find this useful. And I'm looking forward to seeing your responses. Excellent responses. Take care. And I'll see you next week when I shall be either announcing the results or presenting the story for the week. All the best.